Well, let's get going. So, hey, just a couple intros. We got Buck Belue here. The 2019 Lifetime Achievement Award brought to you by our friends over at Janney Wealth Management. So, Buck, I got to ask you, how's life since you won the award? Have you been able to go out to eat? Have you bought a meal in Atlanta since the award? Tell us everything.
Well, the kids were impressed with the trophy, with number one. I mean, they said, "Dad, where'd you get the Super Bowl trophy at?" I mean, it looked a little like the Lombardi trophy. So, yeah, I got street cred went up when I brought that home that night. But, yeah, it's, this lifetime achievement thing. You don't want to focus too much on, a lot of people say, well, it just means you're old. That's how you qualify for that, Hut. But
is this like what do they call them, Cub Scouts, where you reach the highest? What's the highest lifetime achievement?
Eagle Scout.
No, maybe they're saying
Eagle Scout. Yeah, is this like your version of the Eagle Scout?
I think you hear people saying, "Is he still hanging around?" My goodness. But yeah, it was great, and I'd received an award from the club coming out of Georgia, senior year, 1981. And that was also a beautiful trophy. And so these are proudly on display back home in the office. No doubt about it.
That's awesome. We had a heck of a time hosting you. We had a big night. That was a lot of fun.
And Hutson, our other guest, as everyone knows, former standout quarterback at University of Georgia. Also had a fantastic career in high school in the state of Georgia. Wanted to get your input. So obviously, since you left Georgia, 2014 was your senior year. You're now a super busy guy, super busy schedule with everything going on with the new radio show every week or every day, and then calling SEC games every week. Can you tell us a little bit about your career in terms of everything that you've done and seen kind of the last few years to get where you are now?
Yeah, I've just, tried to take every opportunity, whether, it pays me or not. And, I think that's kind of the life lesson is, when you're trying to crack into this industry and, you don't have some big, huge name. I don't have the name recognition that a lot of these guys that get into to this industry do. So you just kind of take the opportunities that come and make the most of it. And hopefully over time you look back and you go, okay, I've made a little progress. And, I feel like I've done that. And, I really love what I do here at 680. Obviously, Buck and I just started a new show, Buck and Hut, every day from 1 to 3. And we get to talk a lot of college football. We're the college football voice of the South at 680 The Fan. And obviously that's right into our wheelhouse. So, and then on the weekends, just being in stadium, it keeps me close to the fire and, the pageantry, not this year, but usually just being around college football, especially in the South. I just love going to different campuses across the country and in the Southeastern Conference and getting to experience, their traditions.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, congrats on all your success. And I know my fellow UGA alumni are excited for your success.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We want to tackle a couple of national news pieces, if you will. So what do you think with Clemson without T-Law this weekend? They lose to Notre Dame. What do you think the committee does? Do they forgive them for a loss? What do you think happens? Clemson still in the mix, even with the loss without Trevor Lawrence?
Well, we're just glad we don't have to properly pronounce the new quarterback's name. We're having trouble. What are we going with? DJU is what we're calling him right now. But look,
if you remember, Patrick gave him the award last year for the National Back of the Year. So.
Yeah, he was the TDA National Back of the Year.
Tell us the proper pronunciation again.
Well, I wish I could. Our guy, shout out Randall. He spent all day figuring out how to pronounce that last name. I think he finally got it in time for the presentation. But he's a heck of a ball player.
He looks like he's going to be the next big man on campus there at Clemson. I was really impressed seeing him for the first time, and big guy that can spin it and run with it, and looks like he's fitting in pretty well there and will be the next man up when Trevor exits. But hoping the best for Trevor. It's a shame he's going to miss these games, but I think he's still in that Heisman hunt, and he's got a chance when he does come back, to go out there and finish off what he started. And so I'm expecting him to still be in the middle of that Heisman race and look good down the stretch.
Hutson, if they lose, are they still in the playoff mix?
Yeah, I think they've got one mulligan, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. And, if they lose to Notre Dame without Trevor Lawrence, I think the committee's shown us before, if you don't have a star player, they take that into consideration, or if it's an injury at the end of the year when they're evaluating you. So I think the same logic kind of applies with COVID, not having Trevor Lawrence. As long as they lose just one game, and obviously they need to win their conference championship, but I think if they're sitting there at the end of the year and then one loss to a Notre Dame team who we think is pretty good and has a good defense, and they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, I don't think that'll be some huge blemish on their resume. And I still think they'll have a really good chance to get in.
Will does Notre Dame get an asterisk on their win if they win?
Oh, yeah, that's a fair question. Yeah, I mean, look, if Notre Dame, all the pressure is going to be on Notre Dame to beat Clemson twice, right? I mean,
Yep.
For them to beat them without Trevor Lawrence, and then for them to beat them twice with Trevor Lawrence, I mean, they're going to have to prove that, they can beat them with their star quarterback. And, that's where things start to get fun, because if you're talking about, hey, Notre Dame wins this weekend, but then they play Clemson again at the end of the season, and maybe they lose when Trevor Lawrence comes back in the ACC championship game. Now you've got a one-loss Notre Dame team. You got a one-loss Clemson team. What about Texas A&M? One loss, looks like they could run their schedule and be sitting there. What about a Georgia team? Will they have two losses or one loss by the end of the SEC championship game? So it's where it kind of starts to get fun, isn't it?
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So that one more thing. So that noise you hear out west is the lane train coming from Oxford, Mississippi. Can you guys tell me what you think was ceiling there for the lane in Oxford, Mississippi? What do you like? Do you like what you're seeing? The attention on Twitter, the fines on Twitter, it's doing nothing but gaining national attention. Can't hurt, right?
Well, he's doing offensively what I expected to see him do, is go out there and get the Rebels back scoring a ton of points and getting great quarterback play. And although I'm a little disappointed, though, we hadn't seen Rice Plumlee very much this year. I totally got excited watching him run with that football last season. And then, Matt Corral's played at a really high level for him. I just wonder, can they get it fixed defensively? If they can, then they'll be a threat over there in the West.
I think John.
We got a couple of UGA related questions. As we have, obviously, you can imagine a lot of alumni and fans part of the Touchdown Club. So the first one, and I know you're either just spoke or about to speak with Coach Smart, so don't want to make any hold you to anything that to hurt that relationship. But I think there's some obvious noise at the national level and at the local level about how good Georgia's defense is, being held down by not as good of an offense for the last 2 years. Hutson, obviously, when you were last at UGA in 2014, it was one of the greater offensive seasons under Coach Mike Bobo in that 2014 season. What is it going to take for Georgia's offense in the next few years to catch up to their defense, and when will that happen?
I think when is it going to happen? It's going to happen whenever Kirby finds the right type of quarterback. I mean, as we've seen, that's what you got to hit on. You got to hit on the quarterback and the OC at the same time, really. And I think Kirby's trying to change. I mean, you don't go out and get a guy like Todd Monken with his background and spread offenses and kind of these more modern concepts, and then simultaneously go get a guy in Jamie Newman who's dual threat, athletic. If you're not trying to make that change, I think he, this year is a byproduct of a couple different things. Jamie Newman opting out, not having reps in the spring, not having reps in the summer, which is, I think, hindered the development of a lot of these quarterbacks that aren't really ready yet. And then, for this offense, when's it going to catch up to the defense? I think it's when kind of Kirby fully embraces this new way of scoring points and college football, where it's defense doesn't really win championships anymore, and it's about offense and can you score. And can you imagine how good Georgia would be if I don't even want to say if they got an offense like last year's LSU, but if they just were able to take a step or two more toward that direction with this defense and the way Kirby recruits, they would be one of the best teams and probably would end up winning a national championship. But when your third gear offensively is 25 points right now, it's just you get into shootouts and you just can't score enough points right now for this Georgia offense against the really good teams in college football offensively.
Yeah, I think they've gotten lost in this transition, trying to go to this new pass-happy scheme, and then COVID hits, and you don't have a chance to go through a spring football practice session where you're getting all this familiarity down with the offense and getting comfortable there. That's really been a setback for them. They've had some receivers they've recruited that have not, for whatever reason, developed into quality threats. And you look at the top teams out there, Alabama, Clemson, just to name those two. They've got three very talented big play receivers they're incorporating into the offense. Georgia's not there yet. It's a little frustrating, but I can understand this year where they're turning back to maybe refocusing on the run game. Big offensive line, herd of running backs. You're not quite there at quarterback and receiver yet. I understand why they're leading with the run game this season.
Yep. And switching back to the defense and a little more specific on the upcoming game. So obviously, as everybody knows, in a very scary situation, Richard LeCount is out for the game, and it seems he's been released from the hospital, and the overall doing well. And Lewis Seen is banged up as well. How do you see Georgia, containing or stopping the dynamic Kyle Pitts for Florida with kinds of question marks at safety right now?
Buck and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't really know if you stop him.
Right.
And I don't really know if you can stop him. You just kind of hope that you look up in the third quarter and he hasn't absolutely torched you. You're still in the game, and some of the other one-on-one matchups on Kadarius Toney or Copeland or, Grimes, that you've won some of those. But, Dan Mullen does a really good job formationally putting Pitts in situations that you can't double team him. So everybody thinks it's just easy. Oh, let's double team him. Well, you can't. They put him in the middle on a 3-by-1 formation. They'll put their formations into the boundary and put him to the field with a bunch of grass. And, if you put a safety over the top and double team him, then they run it, because they got numbers in the box. So the way Pitts affects the game without the ball in his hands is, I think, one of the greatest compliments you can give to a player, and especially him. Is like, he doesn't have to, and he doesn't affect the game just with the ball in his hands. He gets so much respect from defensive coordinators drawing double coverage that it really allows other guys to shine, like Kadarius Toney, who had 3 touchdown catches last week.
What do you think we share with them what Kirby told us?
Or do we tease them and make them tune in at 1:30
let's go ahead
to listen?
and tell them. Kirby just told us there's no way to replace a LeCount in that defense. And look, I went back and watched last year's Georgia-Florida game and noticed that LeCount was shadowing Fields a lot during the course of the game and was doing a pretty good job on Pitts. Shadowing Pitts. So, they're going to miss LeCount. Now, I have no idea who they're going to put in that role. But therefore, I think the big key for Georgia defensively is they've got to get some pressure on Trask. They've got to hit Trask. They got to get Kyle Trask on the ground. If you're going to allow him to stand in the pocket without a LeCount in there working on Pitts a little bit, I think that's bad news. So I want to see Georgia turn up that heat. Ojulari coming off the edge against the Stone Forsyth, I think, is an advantage for Georgia, the way Ojulari's playing. And they got to get Trask early and often so he just doesn't sit back there and pick us apart.
Yep. And final quick question is, who handed off the better running backs, Buck or Hutson?
Well, he's got the hardware to show for it, so I think he automatically gets the nod, right?
Well, how many good running backs do you work with?
Let's see, Gurley, Chubb, Sony Michel. I mean, you look up and you're like, geez, can we not recruit so many good running backs around here? Maybe we'll throw the ball every once in a while. Maybe.
Well, I'll tell you, we had all SEC Willie McClendon, who was an outstanding player when I first arrived, and then Herschel showed up on the scene. I think we both had it pretty good, actually.
I agree.
How many points does Florida score this weekend?
I see them getting a 30, 27-30. Buck and I talked about this yesterday on our show. I think the magic number for Georgia's 30, and right now it's hard. It's a scratch and climb and claw to see how Georgia offensively can get to 30 points. But I'll tell you what, I've doubted Georgia before in games where I didn't think that they would be able to hold potent offenses under the threshold of 30 points, and they did. Auburn, I thought Auburn's offense was much better than what it was. They kind of fooled me. But there's been games before where you think this offense is going to come in and at least score 30, and they just don't. So, what's so unpredictable right now and unknown is, the COVID, how COVID has affected this Florida team. They had 2 safeties and a starting corner out last week against Missouri. So do those guys come back? You know, it's hard to kind of quite predict what this team's going to look like in a score if you're talking about 3 starters out in the secondary. So that's what makes it a challenge. And Mullen is not going to release that information. Nobody's going to find out until Saturday.
Well, you look at the teams that gave him trouble a year ago. Auburn and LSU held him to 23, 24 points. Georgia, if they want to win the game, there's got to be somewhere around there, I would believe. And so Mullen's probably concerned with the Georgia run game that will limit their possessions, the number of times they'll touch the ball. I've seen where he's been concerned about that before, about his offense needing to be efficient, making the most of the possessions they get. He's got to be a little concerned about Georgia holding on to that ball with long drives, getting that running game going. They're going to have to I'm sure he's in Grantham's ear saying, we can't allow that to happen.
So you guys got to tell me, does Georgia score more than 30?
I don't think so. No, I think this is a 27, 21, 27, 24 ball game. I don't think Georgia can still win it. I just don't think that, Georgia can get to 30 points. So really, that's no surprise, right? I mean, if the surprise will be if Georgia can hold Florida to under 30 points, that'd be a spectacular day at the office for this. They're not quite Alabama. Florida is, but they're one step, I think, offensively below Alabama. And you saw, with the quarterback and the elite receivers that they have push the ball down the field, it's hard to hold those guys under 30 points.
Hey, you guys should know, you can't predict the Georgia-Florida game.
That's
right.
That game's unpredictable, right?
Hey,
I'm going
one
to go
more-
50-0 Georgia in the game.
That's a
There we
good
go.
call.
There we go.
Hey, one more quick thing, Hutson. So you
They call
called
that irrational optimism.
Hey, it was got time for that. Hey, so you called that Florida Mizzou game. Was Mullen's actions as egregious as they looked on camera? Did you see anything from the booth? I mean, he looked completely out of place and out of line. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, he didn't start it, but he didn't necessarily help it either. He didn't go out there to calm down the situation. So I get why he went out there, right? Like, they're already paper thin. You don't want one of his players to do something stupid, throw a punch, and that was inevitable at that point. But, I know why he went out there. I think the problem I had was when he went out there, he didn't go to his players. He went straight toward the Missouri coaches. And I think that's really what instigated the situation. If he had just kind of stayed to his guys and worried about getting them back, but he went out there, man, and he was going after the Ryan Walters, the defense coordinator from Missouri. And I just think as a player, when you see your coach acting like that, it almost kind of justifies that, okay, now I can act like that. And then it poured gasoline on the fire, and that's when, the MMA fight started to occur. So sort of fans, like I said that, but, they got to take off your biased glasses and just kind of call it like it is.
Come on, that $25,000 fine, that's like a slap on the wrist of the money that Mullen's making down at Florida.
All right. Well, hey, you heard it first, 50-0 Georgia. Buck Belue quoted it. So, hey, thanks so much, guys. We appreciate your time. Love what y'all are doing. And, thanks again so much.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Thanks,
hanging
guys.
out with you. Thanks.
Hey, thanks.
You as well.